Pushen Motra.
Music in Northern Trime podcast.
I'm Lejla.
I'm Leonarda.
Welcome home.
So we've been talking to people online, especially on our Insta Live and TikTok Live.
We have been.
And a lot of the questions that they want us to cover, the topic is toxic mother-in-laws or just mother-in-laws in general. In-laws in general. And there's a lot to speak about.
I know. And I think for me, it's a bit of it's a weird topic because I don't have the lived experience of having Albanian in-laws. Yeah. And I definitely don't have your traditional heteronormative relationship anyway.
No.
But we did ask some of the girls on our Insta to give us, I guess, like their own opinion, their own lived experience. So we'll definitely be sharing some of that at some point in this episode. But we got a little bit of a balanced response, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And I know you're saying, you don't have the traditional experience. I still think your experience is still valid to speak about in this episode, because it is an in-law experience, and Trime is Lejla and Leo.
You know what? You're right, actually. And I think, thank you for correcting me on that one. And I think that's important because there are so many women out there like myself. That was the whole point of doing this podcast, who are going to look at me and be like, oh, okay, I'm a gay woman or I'm married outside the culture. And you're 100% right that our experiences with our in-laws, whoever our in-laws are just as valid. They don't have to be Albanian in-laws.
Actually, because in-laws are in-laws. They come in every shape.
No, you're so right. You're actually so right.
Thank you.
See, this is what I say to people, the way, we actually really do, challenge each other, but, in a really nice, loving way.
Yeah, but I just, I don't want you to feel like just because you don't have an Albanian in-law experience, you can't speak about it. Because you did the same thing for me when I said, well, I don't have a lived experience of, being abused. And I still have a good experience. And it was important to share that. So I want to return that favour. It's not even a favour. It's more of come here.
Make me feel seen, really.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like I belong here.
Exactly.
Thank you. No, see, we're only human.
Well, are we?
Well, I mean, me and you. Now, we are. We have our own emotions, our own feelings. Yeah. And we've said it so many times that this podcast has very much become such a huge part of our own journey and our own, the way that we're learning and navigating. So
exactly.
I appreciate you for that.
No, I appreciate you.
Yeah, but I want to hear about your experience, though, because you're...
I'm dancing around the subject.
You're dancing around the subject. You're beating around the bush. Girl, spill the tea.
I mean, I don't have a bad relationship with my in-laws. It's a good relationship, but it's good because we're distanced. From the get-go, I agreed with my husband. I told him these are my, this is what I do and don't want to do. And the number one thing is when we go to Kosovo, I will not be staying in your parents' house. I want my own space because I'm there maybe for a week, for 2. I'm not there to wake up in my in-laws' house and feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not that they would ever expect me to get up and make chai and do all of this kind of stuff, because they're not that type, and they know me as well. They know that I'm not that type. I'm very much the type of, there's the cupboard, get up, get your own glass of water, because my in-laws' house is not my house.
Yeah. Well, you've said many times, Nugba hizmet, you've said that so many times.
Yeah. I will do hizmet in my own house, in my parents' house, but I won't do hizmet in someone else's house. And it's because I don't want to be taken advantage. I don't want to be seen as that golden prize that someone's won. And look how she serves chai. Look how she serves Turkish coffee. Look how she does this. Yeah. That's not my value.
But that's because what we're seeing in the comments a lot is a lot of this doesn't happen. This is so old. And
it does.
It does. We witnessed it, and we witnessed it growing up. We witnessed, I remember going to when you just go for chai, in Mahal.
Yeah.
And if they had a brand new nulse, she would literally sit at the door on a chair, just waiting to serve everybody. Yeah. And we're not, right now, where we are in society, we're not that far removed from the reality of what it was like for women.
Exactly.
Let's stop being ignorant about that and actually acknowledge that it happened, and that there is still parts in our community that does happen.
Exactly. I mean, I was staying at my aunt's house in America when I was 19. I went there because I didn't know where I wanted to spend my 3rd year, whether it was America America, Sweden, or Austria. And I decided Austria. And my cousin just got married with a Kosovan girl. And she came and they dressed her from head to toe, like in a really over-the-top dress. Her makeup, her hair, everything done. And she changed her outfit like 4 times. And they had guests come in for 2 weeks non-stop. It was just a massive cycle of, let me serve you, let me serve you.
So
like
exhausting.
it almost feels like I've won a prize and now I need to show it to you.
Yeah. Like a cattle parade?
Like a cattle parade.
Yeah.
You know, it's very icky. It makes me feel really icky. But I was quite fortunate that I have a very strong head on top of my shoulders.
Nah, you?
You're me.
Absolutely not. I don't believe it, not for 1 second. Leo, the rebel wife? Absolutely not.
When me and my husband spoke, and this wasn't influenced by no one. Everyone in my family, my cousins, everyone are very much husmet, Norse typical women. Whereas me and my sisters are kind of not, because I've trained them. Like, you are not cattle, you are a human being. So with me, it kind of ended, and my in-laws caught on that really, really fast, because my husband set that boundary. Expectation and boundary of, she's my wife and mine only.
Yeah. So this is the bit that I'm really like interested in hearing from the community, is when women are going against the grain and they're not following the traditional practices and the culture, the traditional parts of our culture, how they're being met, like how is everyone else treating them, how are they behaving when women are refusing to do that, when they're actually breaking those boundaries down and they say, no, I'm not doing that. Because it's all well and great saying, you know, my family treated me amazing and I have the great experience, and I'm sure you do, like that's not taken away from a single woman's lived experience whatsoever, but I'm interested to know in what happened to the women who went against it.
They were probably dismissed from conversations, from outings, from probably even respect. You know, I only say that from my own experience of when I put those boundaries in, when I go back, no one really wants to spend time with me. No one really, you know, if I want to go to my in-laws, I have to go with my husband because I'm just not comfortable, you know. But still saying that, I feel like the extended family of my in-laws are a bit more warmer towards me.
A bit more connected.
A bit more connected. And it's only because they are women that are still at home, you know, that have never been married, and these are really independent women, so they're very connected to me. Whereas my direct in-laws, we don't really get into each other's into each other's way. We don't really conversate a lot because we don't have a lot to conversate over. Two different mentalities, completely two different mentalities. One is very extreme. You know, my mother-in-law went through an extreme lived experience of being that typical Norse, of raising the 2 kids by herself, of looking after her own in-laws, of cooking, cleaning.
My mum was exactly the same,
you know,
exactly the same.
So we just don't see eye to eye. The only thing we see eye to eye on is she is so highly educated, and I guess we see eye to eye on that. But when it comes to thoughts and mentalities of independency, it's completely opposite. So that's how I believe women are treated. They're just treated as dismissive. They're treated as the rebel. They're treated as, I feel bad saying it, but they're just treated as and then they shame the whole family.
Because we've said it so many times that the honor always just falls back down to what the girl is doing. And it's interesting that you say about the your in-laws side, the ones who are a bit more like I guess inclusive of you and you have a bit more of a relationship with, are they single? Okay, so they're not married, because that's something we haven't touched on yet in the podcast, is the single women in the community. I'm so keen on talking about that. It definitely deserves like its whole own episode, but I wanted to have a chat about that because we've spoken so much about marriage and relationships, when yet I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, What about all the single women? But that is it, isn't it? Our mentality in our community is all about relationships, like marriage and being ready for marriage and having children. What about all those women who don't want that?
Exactly. And the women,
you know what I mean? Like, where is their, like, they are so valid and so, like, but at the same time so put on the back burner in our community, almost as if like, oh, they don't matter. And I see it a lot in the women that I know in the community, who might be in their 30s like me, like mid 30s, and not married yet, and it's almost as if like everyone pities them.
Or Jannah.
Like, when you're going to get married, you're 35. It's none of your business. They're living life. Leave them to it.
And I think it's also the conversation that they like to have of, you need to lower your standards. No one's gonna, with these standards, no one's gonna marry you.
I've actually heard this direct from women in the community who have maybe, started to settle down late in their late 30s, because women are not settling for shit. They're absolutely not, and nor should they. Absolutely not, right? And I've heard this directly come from them when they're saying, "Oh, but you're Vietru. Like, what can I do? Like, I just need to settle." There's certain things about him where I'm like, red flag.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, you have to compromise at this age.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. You absolutely don't. And I want to free women from those shackles. Like, I want them to know that regardless of what age they're at, they don't have to settle for bullshit. Saying that, I don't really have experience of in-laws. I saw what my mum went through with my dad's side of the family, and the way she was treated, and it was horrific. Like, it was horrid, absolutely horrible. But it also had that element, that very like traditional, what you would have seen 20, 30 years ago, or long before that, where the women got up early, baked bread, cooked, cleaned, did everything, miprit musafir, absolutely everything, all day, every day. And then obviously we came to the UK and things changed slightly, but that mentality is ingrained, it's indoctrinated, right? Especially in the older generation. And so then when my uncles, when they started to get married, my mum and my grandma and my aunt vowed, they were like, we're never, ever going to be the in-laws that we've experienced, like, we want to be all like, have a great relationship. We want all the kids to love each other. And so my mum vowed from the day that my uncles got married that she was not going to be that sister-in-law or any type of in-law like that whatsoever. And also the same with my brother, because he's married as well. And my mum is like, I just, if she was my mother-in-law, I'd be so blessed. Like, if I had my mum as my mother-in-law, I'd be so blessed. Like, she is phenomenally supportive. Like, I've seen the things that she's done for her brothers and tried to support them as much as she possibly can. And as a result of that, she has an incredible relationship with my uncle's wives. And the kids, like, we all adore each other. And like, even now, like today, like, Bella is with Mosh Medite, and like, she's with the kids, and they're all having the best time. And that is a direct product of my mum saying, no, I'm not going to be that toxic in-law. I'm not going to do that. Like, all I want is love and connection in and amongst my family. And that's exactly how it should be. So like, I've witnessed both sides of it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same with my mum. She, my mum's in-laws, she was blessed with them. My dad's parents, Young Khan, so, even though I have never seen them, but Young Khan so ort. My granddad would buy my mum cigarettes. My granddad would always make sure that my mum didn't go without anything. And I'm talking about this family. My dad's family were dirt poor. My mum ate spring onions throughout the whole pregnancy with me. She had nothing else to eat. It was spring onions and bread. That was all she had. So she, she always says like, I was blessed. Ik kom pas via rit, resultatet, inshallah progenitor. So she had a really great experience. But when my mum came here, when all of us came here, my house turned into like a refugee hotel. And my dad would bring a lot of people that were coming from the war. So my mum with 5 kids with me, cook, clean, do this, serve, cook, clean, do this, serve, take the kids to school, pick them up, blah, 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 do all of that. So when it came to, because I've only got one brother, when it came to her own daughter-in-law, my mum vowed to just, not get involved, stay out of her way, and make sure that the kids never fall out. That's the number one priority for my parents, is that all 5 of you have to be good with each other. And it's because of their own experiences where in-laws, where sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws have gotten involved and stuff have just... siblings are not
gone
siblings
well
anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my parents have made it like their biggest priority is to make sure that all 5 of us get along. My parents don't get involved in any of our marriages. They do advise us. They advise my siblings more than they do me because they know me. Just like my dad always says, I don't need to worry about you because I know you will handle it. Like,
my mum always says that about me as well. She's like, she should put 2 korsbånd because she knows.
Literally.
She knows I don't take shit because she's experienced it firsthand.
Exactly. So my parents are like, I don't need to worry about you. But it's, it's sad that it's sad that our mums had to go through that to break the cycle. But what's even sadder is that me and you still see it today. I still see it today.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is even though we do have these positive experiences to share from our lives, our personal lives, that doesn't negate from the fact that it is happening or has happened to anyone else. Like, you can be a really balanced, measured discussion to say that, okay, even though it didn't happen to me, that does not take away from someone else that it did happen to.
Exactly. And this whole issue with in-laws is so deep-rooted. It goes into, parents expect their sons to stay at home with their wives. Parents expect the wife to look after them in their old age. They don't really understand the concept of independent living. What I mean by that is, I've only seen a limited amount of people, and this is obviously, I've only seen some couples on social media in Kosovo that live together by themselves. But in real life, most of the people that I know live with their in-laws. And for me, that's just a recipe for disaster. Because in any single situation, a parent's priority is always their own child.
And you're right. And to a certain degree, it absolutely should be. But where we run the danger in our community is that then when violence and abuse is happening, it's then enabled because it is, for example, the child, the son, or
that's what I mean.
And that is massively dangerous.
So
like, it shouldn't
dangerous.
even. There's no way we should be allowing or enabling this kind of abusive behaviour in anywhere in our community whatsoever.
No, but it's sad because in-laws allow it. Not all. Again, I feel like I need to say every single time, not all.
But you're talking about you're giving a voice to the women who have experienced that.
Yeah.
So when you say in-laws allow it, you're being the voice for the women who have experienced that.
Yeah.
I think we're all smart enough to know that it's not all. And I refuse to allow that not all men or not all in-laws, not all Albanians, that I refuse to allow that to detract from what we're doing here.
It's giving all lives matter.
It is giving all lives matter. Like, I refuse to allow that to detract from the fact that what Trime is to give a voice to women who haven't had one.
Exactly. And also, that whole concept of, it doesn't happen in the UK. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does.
I've got people in my own generation.
Stop it. I know people personally, personally, I know them who have had awful, horrific experiences with their in-laws.
Same.
Horrific. And I think as well, like, as not just women, but also like just as women and men in our culture, we then end up carrying that shame if we have a bad relationship with our parents.
Yeah.
We carry that, that's a thing. That's a really, really deep thing.
Heavy.
Absolutely. It's heavy really heavy. It's a heavy burden.
It's heavy on your shoulders because if you get in between your wife and, let's say, your mum, you're seen as a bad son. If you, let's say, back up your mum, then you're seen as a bad husband. Yeah. Because I think a lot of men forget that their wives is someone's daughter, someone's sister.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Because if you were to pose the question, and I have a really strong opinion on this. Like, if you were to pose the question, like, how would you feel if someone treated your mum like that? How would you feel if someone treated your sister like that? But the fact of the matter is, you shouldn't have to just connect because it's your mum or sister. you should just connect as a human being.
Exactly.
That nobody deserves to be treated like that.
Exactly.
Because
I've seen men going, oh, risatenzo, like for their, I don't know, their brother-in-law, whatever it is, like they will not let anyone disrespect their sister. But when it comes to their own wife, it's a whole different situation because you're my wife.
Yeah.
And that's why the concept of she's someone's daughter, she's someone's mom,
because she's always property.
Sister. Yeah.
She's always belonging to someone. She's always like, someone's always got some kind of power or ownership over her.
Exactly.
And like, I just think about all of this, because I know so many women in the community, whether it's through family or whatever, that are in their early 30s, mid 30s, they're single.
That's so cool.
And they're living their best lives. They're happy.
Oh, Kurmusu Martoni.
It's a trap. Don't do it.
Oh, Kurmusu Martoni, please.
No, listen, I say this all the time, yeah. One thing I love about our culture is the weddings. And one thing I'm always upset about is the fact that I probably will never have a big Albanian wedding. Like, I want to be on a reality TV show and call it my big fat Albanian wedding and do absolutely everything. Absolutely everything, all of it. Mishku Makira, Medefat, like everything, all of it.
I will organise it for you.
For me and Dan?
Yes, for you and Dan. I will organise it for you and Dan.
Where are we going to start from?
Wherever you... Oh, Makirat.
Yeah. We're going to start from South London to North London.
Well, the women that are single in our community, I feel for them because they still go through so much judgment. They go through so much like that TikTok. Oh, what's
the other one? I saw one TikTok recently. It was so funny. It's the mum burst into the room, opening the curtains like, "Hajde qubi I am, se kush konte burri I nuk len çto të ndite me fjet." She's like, "Mom, it's only 6 o'clock in the morning."
Yeah, it's the and it's also the teburi kemeshku, te. Did you sell me off? Because if you did, please tell me how much you got so I can, get my commission.
Yeah, I think for me that the whole concept of marriage, like in a heteronormative dynamic, right? So a man and a woman was completely suffocating for me. Like, I absolutely hated it. Even growing up, I was like, I don't want to get married. I was coerced into get married. So when I did get married, the next day after my wedding, I was depressed instantly. And for me, it was that notion of now feeling like I belonged to a man, and I absolutely hated it. Of course, there were other factors of the fact that I was with a man who was strangling me. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are many, many factors, but that had a big part to play in it as well. That the second I got married, I was like, why did I do that? I absolutely hate the idea of being married to a man. I thought it was just marriage in general until I met Dan. And now I'm like, let's have a big fat gay wedding. Like, I'll get married 10 times over to you. I don't care. And that was when I really started to understand that it wasn't marriage that I hated. It was the idea of being married to a man that made me feel so restricted and suffocated and chained. But if me and Dan got married, I would love it.
Yeah,
I'd love it. I say it to her all the time. Like, I just want to go around and be like, this is my wife.
Yeah, because you don't feel owned.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. No, literally, that's what it feels like. It's like, I think the idea of ownership or like a man owning a woman was completely suffocating to me.
Yeah. I can only speak obviously from my own marriage. When I got married, obviously there was no other choice for him to come to the UK. There was no other choice, so I had to do it. So it was more like of a rushed situation. But I've never in my entire life with him ever felt like I was owned, and it's purely because we don't live a traditional cultural life in the house. I did not change my name to his. I use his name in the UK because of racism. So I will
you said
say
this
that
quite a lot, haven't you?
Yeah, I use his name because of racism. But my last name isn't Demolli legally, and I will never change it because I don't. It's actually against Islam to change it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's against Islam to change it because on the Day of Judgment, what we believe is you'll be called by your father's name. You won't be called by your husband's name. And God makes it completely clear that women are not property.
Right.
And they should not be treated as property. And therefore they are not allowed to give up their last names. Because that links them to their lineage.
So do most Muslim marriages, then they don't take the man's last name?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
No, they just
I didn't know that. I thought that was just a given.
No, me and my out of everyone in my whole family,
You're the only one that
I'm the only one.
Wow.
And then I've got Turkish friends, like one of my close friends. Yeah. She hasn't either. But obviously, it just, it causes some issues when you travel with kids because you have to take their, birth certificates with you to prove that you're their mum. But I'm so sorry. Who the hell's going to take kids on the plane? No. Like a 2-month-old, please take them.
I never changed. So when I got married, I never changed.
Yeah.
I didn't change my name. I kind of just acted like I was going to, but I also knew I was like in the process of I knew I was going to leave. Like I knew I was going to leave my abuser. But the thought of me changing my name, like completely eradicating and erasing that part. Like I'm Lejla Dauti. Yeah. I'm Lejla Dauti, and I will never ever get rid of my name Dauti. That's who I am. It felt like it was completely erasing my identity. Yeah. And I don't know what it is, but I am so tied to my surname.
Of course.
I absolutely love my surname. But I think now having this conversation with you, I'm realizing that my name, both of my names, Lejla and Dauti, they're such strong for me, they're really, really strongly tied to my heritage.
Of course.
Exactly. And we know that Lejla is Persian. We know that Lejla means, I was actually born on Lejla Qadr, and that's why my parents named me Lejla. Yeah. And Daut is the derivative of Davut.
You were born on Nota Qadr. Yeah, Nota Qadr. Yeah. You're so lucky.
Yeah, and that's why my parents named me Lejla. And then Daut is the derivative of Davut from the Quran. So I'm really heavily tied to my name. And it's not even the religious aspect of it. It's my heritage. It's the fact that ties me to Kosovo.
That ties you to your Katon.
Yeah, absolutely. And so my history and my family, they've always been community leaders. Oh my God, why am I getting emotional?
It's okay. It's because you're proud.
Yeah, like I am so proud. Like I'm really proud. And I think family dynamics are so complicated, and it's something that's really, it's a topic that is really emotional for me. Yeah. They're so complex and they're so complicated. But in my family, mostly the men have been community leaders. So my great granddad was well known. So he brought the whole village from the mountains down into the city. Amazing. That's what he did. Yeah, 'cause otherwise, my dad was born in the mountains.
Yeah. Malsor.
Yeah, my family are Malsor. And I have no shame in that. Like, and for some reason, there's a lot of shame attached to being a Malsor in our community, and I don't know why, but there is that. I've always felt like they say, why?
It's because they see them as
uneducated, or like all of that. Yeah,
posh,
but
basically,
I guess like when you grow up in the West, especially in England, everyone loves living in the country. So I didn't understand. I never got it, but I was always like, I'm a Corkite. Yeah, I am. I'm right from the mountains. Exactly. That's where I'm from. So my great granddad, when he died, when he was buried under, in his plaque, it's his name, but it's also his community name as well. Oh. Yeah. And the same with my granddad.
That's amazing.
So, and my dad has been a community leader for the longest time. And I think sometimes we forget that even though we do have really complex relationships in and amongst our families and in the community, it's still who I am. It's my heritage, and I'm deeply tied to that. And I'm deeply proud of a lot of my heritage, and I'm deeply proud of a lot of the achievements and accomplishments that have been made in my family. That doesn't mean that hasn't come with a lot of trauma and a lot of heartache and a lot of grief and sadness. But that's why it's really emotional for me. It's really emotional to sit here and talk about family and talk about in-laws, because there's that part of me that's like, when I said I don't have that lived experience to share, I guess what I meant was I don't feel that connection.
Yeah. And it's sad. It's really, really sad. And I hope through this whole journey with Trime, first of all, I can invite you to a big fat wedding.
Albanian wedding. I haven't been to one for the longest time, but I absolutely love Albania. I think they're the best thing ever.
They are. They're the best. Oh, they're just the best. The atmosphere, the
dancing, the food, the dresses, the tupana, the difa, everything. I love it.
It's just
I love everything about it. And I can't wait when me and you go to Kosovo for Trime. I'm putting it out there in the universe. It's emotional because you've missed out on really seeing and experiencing the development that the culture has had. They've experienced the new generations, the younger generations. You've missed out on, I guess, just being around your own people.
Yeah. Just hearing my mother tongue.
Yeah. Hearing your mother tongue and feeling like, because we're in England, we're in shitty England, really. You're never going to feel.
No, you never feel like you belong. No.
Never, ever. And
you're constantly reminded that you don't belong.
Constantly reminded that you don't belong. Constantly reminded that you basically are an alien to the country. Constantly reminded, me personally, I'm constantly reminded that I have nothing in common with the English ever.
Yeah.
I'm constantly reminded, because I'm a Muslim, practicing Muslim, I'm constantly reminded that I'm hated every single time. And it's why I hide my surname from clients, from professional, from everyone.
Yeah.
And I use my husband's. And it's because I did this test when I was looking for work, and my CV had my original surname, which is Mustafa. It's a really strong
there's
Islamic
no denying
name. And you see Leonarda, Mustafa, and you're like, first of all, who did she marry and where she comes from? And I would send my CV and I always get rejection. And then I did a test and sent my CV with Leonarda Demolli, and I always got 90%
because they probably just thought you were Italian.
Success rate.
Yeah. I know, right? And this is why intersectional feminism is so important, because this isn't just about being a woman. Mm-mm. This is about the intersection of being an Albanian woman living in the West, living in the diaspora, carrying all of these parts of our identity that actually affects our daily life every single day, everywhere we go.
Exactly. Everywhere we go, you speak, our mother tongue is Albanian. I only speak Albanian with my husband. Mm-hmm. Obviously he speaks English, but for us it's natural to just speak Albanian. And the comments you hear, the comments I've heard while speaking to my mum, is disgusting. The treatment, just like, oh, you don't belong here. Why are you in this white area? Just like,
oh, you mean here?
Here.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about back home. I was like, what could they have to say about you speaking in?
No.
You mean here? Oh, of course. But I watched everyone do this to my mum her whole entire life. Bro. I watched the way I've never just watched, by the way. I've always been there to my mum's defense. I've seen it. I've witnessed it, the way that people treat my mum, because she's got a really thick accent when she talks, and it stopped my mum from feeling confident for the longest time to speak in English. And I always say to her, mum, like, who cares? Just say it. Like, even if you get it wrong, just say it. You're speaking 2 languages. These people can only speak 1.
Exactly. And that already makes you more superior than them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But really, that I saw that happen to my mum and to my dad a lot. And because of that, anyone that says to me, oh, I'm so sorry about my English. I do this as well. I carry this through my work as well with what I do with my frontline work, trying to support victims to safety. If they come in, and sometimes they don't always want an interpreter, but there's a little bit of a language barrier. I'm always like, I think this is what stops my mum from seeking help. This is what stops so many women from seeking help. I have to right now use that privilege that I know English perfectly, but also understand that intersection of English as a second language. Exactly. And also we are more equipped to actually understand them because we've already got parents that have an accent. We already grew up in that environment. We can pick up words easier than any. Yeah.
Oh my God. So when people talk with accent, sorry, I feel like we've gone completely off topic, but when people talk with an accent, I know exactly what they're trying to say straight away. And it's purely from the fact that experience. Yeah, absolutely. Like growing up, and it wasn't just my mum, it was my whole family. Yeah. All the adults in my family, they all have thick Albanian accents when they talk. It's so complex. And I think that's how, when we do talk about the complexity of marriages and that in-law dynamic, that in-law relationship in the diaspora, we have to remember that there's so many different parts of that actually affect that toxicity, that make it toxic.
Massively, especially for the generation that came from the war and just before the war. They've been locked in this situation, in this mentality that I have to serve my husband, I have to serve my in-laws. So, you know, I see it in my own parents when they go back home, or when someone, because my parents don't have in-laws alive anymore, but when someone does and they go back home, they go straight to the in-laws, they buy loads of stuff, really expensive stuff for the in-laws, build houses for the in-laws, and kind of for their own family, it's like, I've only got this much to give you.
Yeah.
I think that's stupid. I think if you're going to build someone a house, and in our community it's like building a house for my brother or for my mum and dad, okay, cool, but if you don't show that same respect to your own in-laws, then why are you doing it in the first place? Because your money, and this is what I hate in our Albanian culture, the man's money and the woman's money is always seen as the man's money.
Yeah. There's the household budget. It all goes
budget. If the
at least that's how I saw it when I grew up.
Same. Yeah. I saw it like that, and I still see it like that. If the woman and the man works, then it's the household money, and the man gets to decide whether he sends 80% to his own parents or whatever. But the woman can't send or do whatever she wants for her own parents. And obviously, like, there are, you know, positive stories of where the son-in-law has actually done so much for his own in-laws, but and I guess also that's why I don't have that strong relationship.
That makes me so, like, I just feel so sad because it's just not what I've witnessed now. Now, I'm not saying forever, because as I said, like, actually my early childhood, watching what my mum went through was horrific, but it's just not what I see happening now in my family. And it must be, as I say, like, it really sometimes takes that shit for it to change, right? Because I've witnessed my uncle be so supportive of his wife, my aunt, and her family, like, so supportive, you know? And it's just, I need everyone to be like that.
Yeah.
I need the whole community to be like that. It's not fair, like, that the majority of the experience isn't like that.
Exactly.
It should be the baseline.
It really should be. It really should be. And it should also, I'm a very, very strong supporter of a son that gets married needs to be independent. A son.
Point blank period. Absolutely. Like, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Point blank period. A man should be independent regardless. Absolutely. He should not be waiting or counting on anybody else to look after him.
Nope, not at all. He shouldn't be counting on his parents' money, on his parents' fortune, on any of that. He just shouldn't. And if you are, then you're not a man. Like I said last time, you're still a boy. You know, you really shouldn't, you shouldn't be counting on it. And it's because I see it day in and day out. You know, I see it day in and day out where the whole toxicity of in-laws comes down to power, money, and property of the woman. That's all it comes down to. Nothing else. It just comes down to that. And because I see it personally, and I'm very much of the mindset that if I have a son tomorrow, I'm not killing myself for him. Raise him until he's 18 and they've done it. If you think you've got big balls to get married, go ahead.
Got big balls at 18. Please don't get married at 18.
Please don't.
It's really young to get married, please.
You'd be surprised.
Whether it's in our community or not, 18 is like, I think back to when I was 18 and I just think, there is no way I was anywhere near.
I was still doing cartwheels at 18. I was still a child.
Just no way. There's absolutely no way. And to be honest, like, even my own lived experience, even when I was married to a man, my lived experience of the in-laws was, I don't really know, like, it's not even worth getting into, you know? Okay. There was no, the relationship, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's what happens.
Your face.
It is what it is. That's what happens when you're married to an abuser. And then obviously, like with me and Dan as well, Dan's mum passed before I met Dan. So I don't have that experience of having that in-law there. And so it's something that I've always missed out on. And something that I've always wanted. I really want, like, that extended family dynamic, but I've not had that much of my life. I do envy that. I do envy other people when they have like really good relationships with their family. Yeah.
So do I. I envy it a lot. But then I'm like, I'm glad it's this way, so I've got less of a headache.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It's less of a headache because you broke the mold. But the thing is even when you did break the mold, you should have been accepted, and it should still be inclusive, regardless. Which is why I say, I want to hear from women who, when they did break the mold, I want to know how that was received.
Yeah.
How people in the community behaved as a result of them breaking the mold. Were they still accepting and inclusive and loving towards them? Or do they turn their back on them and outcast them and shun them from the community?
It's probably the latter.
I want to hear from them. I really want to hear this. But speaking of hearing from women in the community, so we put a little comment box out on our Instagram, and we asked the women in the community to share their experiences or their thoughts or their comments. And so we're just going to read out some of the responses that we got. Someone said, my mother-in-law is an amazing woman. She minds her business, doesn't tell me what to do. She shows so much love, care and love for my children, who are obviously her grandchildren. She's very respectful, and whenever I am in her house, she never lets me get up and do anything. She just wants me to relax.
That's amazing.
I know, right? Lovely. Someone else said, that horrible mother-in-law, it seems to come from the older generation who have often suffered in silence. Fact, they did. Fearing judgment if they spoke up. It's an unfair portrayal, not only paints mother-in-laws negatively, but also reinforces harmful views of women. Personally, I have a great relationship with my mother-in-law. I sometimes hesitate to share that because I worry people will think I'm pretending. It's important to challenge these stereotypes and show that positive relationships can exist. And I could not agree more. I honestly 100%. Couldn't agree more with her. And this is why I said this from the beginning, that even when we do talk about if women are perpetrating or enabling abuse in the community, we have to look at it from a different lens completely. And this person is so right for saying that. It does almost portray a wrong, I guess like a toxic view of women in our community, because they're, even for women who have that misogynistic or have carried out violent practices, it's not for the same reason as why men do it. And so someone else said, his mum accepted me for years until we started setting boundaries, like knocking before you come into our bedroom, let us open our own mail, etc. She then turned on me. She told me I was changing her son and got the whole family to turn on me too. I feel so isolated. Our wedding is coming up, but I feel like the whole family hates me and it's been so hard. I guess what this woman is saying is that it was all well and good for as long as she was abiding by these imaginary rules. The second that she started setting down boundaries, it changed.
But who walks into their son's bedroom like that?
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
Do you want to be scarred for life?
Well, I mean, the thing is again, like sometimes for these things for me are just so far removed from my reality. Like, I haven't lived at home since I was, well, I'm 35 now, so for 15 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not that I can't relate to it. I think I just don't know how to relate to it.
You don't know how to respond.
Yeah, right. I don't know how to respond because there's so much independence and freedom in my own life. And that's why, even though I do have that independence and freedom in my own life, why it's important to highlight these experiences for women.
Exactly. And especially with that last response, I primarily put the blame on the husband or the husband to be, because he's the one that needs to protect his wife, and his mum needs a reality check. You know, you can't walk in someone's bedroom without knocking on their door. It's just invading someone's privacy. I feel for her so much, but I really do put the blame on the husband.
You think it should be down to him to... Oh, it's his family, so yeah, you're right.
100%. I'm a massive believer of Mosebomot. Like, I'm a massive believer because I never want to be the one to be in between a mum and a son. I'm a massive believer of actually confronting your own husband in private and saying, look, I'm not okay with this. Yeah. This is why X, Y, and Z. I've done it many times with my husband. I'm not okay with this because of this, X, Y, and Z. He is the translator. You know, my husband is my translator because I grew up in the West.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the oldest. I've been so independent. I've never been asked by my parents, do his med, do this, do that. Never. They've never kind of drilled it in my head that you have to do this, you have to, because my mum wanted to break that cycle. So for me, it's, you know, it was foreign. So it definitely is the husband's responsibility. It is the husband's responsibility.
I suppose you're like leaning on him and really kind of needing him to have your back.
100%.
And it must be such a hard thing to balance in our community, because do you then just put up with it if your husband doesn't have your back? Or do you stand up for yourself and you say, actually, nothing's going to change here, I'm walking away?
I think
it's really difficult to just say to women, oh, it's easy, just walk away. It's so difficult because that's not what women are taught in our community. Women are not taught autonomy. They're taught to put up and shut up.
Yeah, which I think is so dangerous.
It's so dangerous. It's life-threatening. Do you know what I mean?
Because Sud, you put up with it, Nestra, you're being put into the ground.
That is the reality. And I need people to understand that is the reality of violence and abuse, the long and short of it. So what would you say, as Leo yourself, from your own personal lived experience, to a woman who might be going through something like that, to a woman who is really trying hard to set those boundaries with the in-laws, but maybe the husband doesn't have her back, or, you know, she's really struggling to be seen and heard in that dynamic? What would you say to them?
It's so hard. If they don't live with the in-laws, they can create distance. You know, I would work into creating distance. I would work into having my own independency, being financially independent. That is my number one. That is my number one. If anyone takes anything away from this episode, is women have to have financial independency.
Oh, I say that just at the bare minimum. Women should have financial independency. Yeah.
Because if you have financial independency, then it's easier for you as a woman. It is easier for you to make decisions. You become more independent. You become your own boss. Whatever it is, it's easier. If they're living with the in-laws, it becomes very tricky, because mental health, physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, all of that come to play. And it's, again, the number one takeaway would be work on yourself. Yeah. Prioritize yourself. And I know it might seem like, oh, just put up with it, but it's not.
No.
It's more of a, make sure you put a plan in place so that when you are ready and you feel ready to be like, fuck all of you, I'm out of here. Yeah. You can do that. Yeah. It's difficult. It's difficult because I know what I would do, and it's because I'm safe, so I know what I would do. But if I didn't feel safe, I would be creating a plan that only me and the universe and God or whoever know. And that is making sure that I work on being financially independent. I work on myself. I make sure that I'm okay, and everyone else can do whatever they want. And I know it's not the perfect answer, but it's something I would do.
Yeah,
I would, because if you've got nowhere to go and that's the only place you have, you kind of have to start
and that's the reality, isn't it? Yeah. You have to,
you have to lay down the foundation.
Yeah,
you have to just, not get on with it, but you have to show your husband, and if you've got kids, you have to show your husband that I'm priority and your kids are priority.
Yeah.
And men only understand that really late. Really
when it's too late. Yeah.
When it's too late.
Yeah.
And it's because obviously women have just put up with it. My takeaway is not to put up with it, to lay your foundation. Make sure that you are independent financially, but at the same time, put those building blocks in your husband's head that I am not happy because of this. I don't like this treatment because of this. Please tell your family not to do this because of this. Yeah. And then if you've got supportive parents, call your parents. There's one thing that I really hate that we do is we don't consult with our own parents if we're unhappy. because we're too scared.
It's so true, yeah. It's true.
Women are too scared to go to
because you don't want to worry them, or you don't want,
and you don't want them to be like, oh, you've brought shame onto our family.
And that's it. I always say, like, even to my clients at work, I say sometimes women, when they are or have been with perpetrators of abusers, they get really stuck on the why does he do this, why is he like this, why doesn't he change? And I always say to them, well, let's stop, if we just not focus on the things that you can't change, that you've got no control over, let's focus on things that you do have control over, yourself.
Exactly.
And let's focus on what you can change in your life to get you to the next step, to get you to that level of freedom that you want to, you want to live by. And a lot of time women will be like, oh, I never thought of that. You can't control other people. You can only have control over yourself.
Exactly.
And you are in charge of your own personal development. And you can do that. It's okay. I need Albanian women to know that it's okay to invest in yourself. So definitely, like, a lot of it's a mixture of experiences, and I'm really glad to know that things have changed. Like, I'm glad to have witnessed it in my own family, that, women like my mum were definitely making sure that they weren't like those toxic, awful in-laws.
100%.
Because I've seen it firsthand. Like, I get to have so much love with my mum's family because of the work that she's put in, So I'm glad to see that there's so much change, but I refuse to also invalidate anyone else's awful lived experience too.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. There really is.
A lot of work to be done.
Especially for the rural areas of, Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, Molly, whatever, or even in the UK.
Diaspora,
Diaspora, especially in the diaspora. Anywhere.
Well, I'm hoping that even by, just opening these conversations up, that it just allows women that space to start thinking about themselves and what they've experienced, or maybe what they're going through currently, and just in ways that they can help themselves, whether it's to seek help or support because they're in the situation at the moment, or maybe they're long past it and they've survived it and actually they need therapy or something to recover from what they were subjected to. So I hope that by what we're doing here, by opening up these conversations, it's having that kind of impact for women in the community.
Yeah, so do I.